Dreyer con el servicio alejado en el segundo poste, todavía Aníbal Acari, la pelota que queda bombeada a la deriva, puede venir el zapatazo, ¡tiro, gol!
Hello and welcome into the official SDFC podcast. I'm Kaila Burns-Hefner here with Sal Zizo for episode 13. No Marv today.
Yeah, no Marv. We don't know what he is, but he is on vacation for a week.
We miss you, buddy. It's all right. We'll hold it down here.
Yeah,
We've got a little bit to go over. Exciting show coming up. We're going to get to talk to Luke Jenkinson, our head of human performance, as well as assistant coach Kelvin Jones to recap the Houston match and go over a little preview presented by Alaska Airlines for our match away at Chicago. First, I just want to hear from you. Kind of thoughts on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was another one of those games where I felt like the game became too much of a coin flip. So much so that San Diego didn't really look like themselves. And, I'm really interested to talk to Kelvin just about, we heard a little bit from Mikey about the principles that they didn't live up to in this game. And, I just want to hear from Kelvin, what were those, missing pieces? What was basically what went wrong in that Houston game?
Yeah, Mikey touched on a little bit on his post-game press conference. Basically, the team didn't look like itself, didn't play as a collective, which are obviously keys to the principles of the style of play here. So definitely going to be interested to talk to Kelvin about the response of this team and how to move forward. Not a common position to lose at home. It's only the second home loss of the season. So which is obviously a great thing to be
crazy too, because look, they won 3 games in a row on the road, which is insane, and maybe a little bit of a letdown. You expect to win the home games, but look, this team has responded time and time again to adversity. So it'd be no surprise to me if they come out and get another road win.
There are some positives to take away. We have a first MLS career goal for Luca Bambino. If you've listened to his podcast episode, just of how much of an impressive young kid he is. And so for him to be able to, I know obviously he probably would have rather have the win than the first goal, but to be able to see that success, also having his first assist with the first goal to Milan there is good to see that progress.
No, and great assist there, and always a good feeling to get your first assist and then to tie it in with your first goal. Congrats to him. Wonderful technique. He got that leg up there and kind of karate chopped it down. Really, really cool to have your first goal in that fashion, but sucks to not get a win, but still congrats to him.
We also have some fun news. This happened right after our last episode, but Chris McVeigh has a new contract. He's been extended through 2027 with an option for 2028. He is now the second player to receive a new contract like this, the other one being CJ Dos Santos with the same years. Both players have played every single 90 minutes in the regular season for this team, for San Diego FC. That's 1,890 minutes.
Yeah, that's insane in modern soccer, right? To play that many minutes, even on short rest. Congrats to him. Glad he'll be staying in San Diego a while. Him and CJ now, a pairing up the middle on the back. Should be hopefully here for years to come and keep this train moving forward.
Do you know how many minutes you played in your career?
I don't know how many minutes, but no idea. Couldn't even guess.
Someone's got it somewhere. Someone can find the stats. We don't have someone that's searching stats for us live, so we can't get that to you. But other news, good to get some guys back. We had defender Patty McNair was back for the first time since getting injured versus Austin. And then we also got to have Anibal Godoy back in the mix after serving for his national team, being able to represent Panama in the Gold Cup. There, he got to be back in the mix. So good to have those guys back. And we'll get Luca De La Torre back.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder too, maybe, there was slightly something off for San Diego just because, guys are coming back, maybe short practice weeks, a lot of kind of different things going into this Houston game. That could have just messed with, the performance. You got Anibal, who is coming off just at the Gold Cup, playing a completely different style, possibly now coming back in, and maybe it just takes a few days mentally and physically to kind of get back into it.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear any perspective that Kelvin may be able to offer on that kind of front. But I also want to play, there was a really great soundbite from Mikey. He always has awesome soundbites in his post-game pressers. But I think this one specifically just speaks to, how the team responds in those kinds of moments. So I'll play it.
I think the message is so clear for me when I look in the mirror tonight is that we have to be consistent in who we are. We have to be collective in who we are. If we want to do great things, unbelievable things, humility is the root of those things. Humility is the root of greatness. And we have to be together in everything we do. And again, that starts with me. So there will be a big reflection on what I do, because what I have been doing, because it was too clearly not collective tonight.
Humility.
Yeah. I mean, when I hear that, I just think, it's some coaches point to maybe, individual mistakes in a game like that where there was definitely some, but he goes back to just playing our style. And he felt like maybe in this game, there were too many individuals doing their own things. And it wasn't as collective. And I think when he says the humility part, it's bring yourself back down to earth, play to our style, and good things will happen. So again, another topic I'd love to talk with Kelvin about, which we're going to very soon, and just kind of hear what they're going to do moving forward to get back on track.
Excited to hear more about this, and also excited for our conversation with Luke Jenkinson coming up. That's going to be a huge one, talking about how you build the health of the human athlete here at San Diego FC from the ground up. So really exciting stuff to come. Please stay tuned.
As the official specialty insurance partner of San Diego FC, Palomar offers standalone earthquake insurance that protects property and peace of mind. It's crucial to be prepared. Visit plmr.com or contact your insurance agent for a quote. Palomar, reimagining specialty insurance with innovative, creative solutions.
Hey everybody, this is Darren Smith. I host a radio show called SDFC Midweek Live. You can hear it Wednesday nights, 6 o'clock on San Diego Sports 760 and anytime on the iHeartRadio app. Join me, Adrian Garcia Marquez, Warren Barton, SDFC players and staff. It's the only hour on local radio dedicated 100% to San Diego Football Club and the beautiful game.
All right, welcome back in for our match preview presented by Alaska Airlines. We're joined by assistant coach Kelvin Jones.
Good to be back.
Great to have you. And you brought us cookies.
Yes. The deliciousness that the cafe gives us every day, I figured I'd come down and share it with you guys. And that way it keeps me from eating them all as well.
Those are for you secretly. And you're like, oh.
Happy to help. We can dive right into just kind of a little bit of a recap of Houston. Want to hear your thoughts on it. We've been chatting a little bit, but what do you think is the biggest thing that you and the team have learned after recapping and kind of taking the time to reflect on it?
Yeah, I think one, it was a pretty busy month and a half. A lot of travel, a lot of success, and then I think a little bit as that month goes on and you come into this game, I hate to say the word complacency, but maybe a little bit of complacency sets in, and you kind of get away from who we are and how we want to play. And I think the biggest reflection from that is there's a reason why we've been successful, and it's playing the way that we want to play, and it takes a collective effort to do so. And just the focus this week is just bouncing back and just getting back to what we do, focus on us, not necessarily the opponent.
So in the game, I mean, obviously, clearly for fans and people watching the game, it didn't look like us. Is there anything like specifically like detail wise that you could point to and say, hey, we didn't do like this specific thing very well?
Yeah, I think before even talking about us, I think there's an opponent on the other side of the field that causes these problems. And fair to Houston, they came out quite aggressive and pressed us basically man-to-man in our build, and that was a surprise to us.
Okay.
So it took us a little bit of time just to settle the game down and get into it, and once we did, you could see a little bit of us. It wasn't as consistent. A lot of it's just you see how compact we are, how close we like to play together, and I think our distances and our lines were just a little bit too far apart. Mm-hmm. But once we settled in the game, that I think the second half, the 20, 25 minutes of the second half, you can see a big difference in the way that we wanted to play and how much we can control the game. Because when we lost the ball, we had more players around the ball. Mm-hmm. So we won the ball back, and we were able to keep the ball a little bit more. But credit to Houston. I think they're top 3 in possession in the league, top 5 in possession in the league. So they're very comfortable on the ball themselves, and they caused us some problems. But biggest things for us is just we preach this all the time, both on and off the field. It's collective, and the way that we play is very, very collective. Now, individuals shine within that, but we've got to get back to playing the way that we want to play.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like a lot of your guys' dialogue is not pointing to like individual mistakes that some players, made, but it was made within, some of the principles that weren't there, right? Yeah. And so that's what maybe caused those. And so, you can always look at individual mistakes, but usually there's a bigger picture as to why that's taking place.
Yeah, you can always point to the individual mistake, but there's several mistakes that lead up to that one glaring one. So, and the crazy thing about this game, they don't have to be big mistakes. It's just an accumulation of little mistakes that end up to be a big one. And to fair to Houston, they punished us in those moments.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about the collectiveness and not playing to our principles, but what do you guys do specifically, if you're able to share, to regroup and refocus to make sure that those mistakes don't happen in the next match?
Yeah, I think what's really important is to create a culture and an environment where there's open feedback and accountability. And we had every match we have a reflection, but this one was maybe the tone maybe a bit harder, but that's the reality of it. That's the job that we chose. And if we want to do something great, which we all say that we want to do, we've got to have open, honest conversations. So we had an open, honest conversation, reflection, and then now, again, refocus on the things that have gotten us to this point, and then emphasis on that. So,
how have you seen the response in training this week?
Fantastic. Today was fantastic. I think humans, after any tough conversation that you have, whether it's your kids or your wife, you got to go into a little bit of a shell. But and that was probably yesterday, but that's all part of it. But the bounce back is the most important, and the training session today was phenomenal. The energy of the group, the collectiveness of the group, how we played both on and off the ball. We covered so much in a short session, and to be able to do that at this intensity was phenomenal. So today was a great bounce back.
Yeah, I think it's great how, a lot of coaches, right, throughout the league, or a lot of teams might say, we won 3 games on the road, we lost 1. Like, let's, we're still fine, we're doing what we're doing, but you guys are there to make, to nip it in the bud, to say it. So it's good because in reality, most teams, don't maybe do that. And then 1 loss turns to 2, 3, 4. And I think what you guys have done so well this year, SDFC, is just turn those around so quickly, right? Little thing, maybe some things didn't go our way in some games, besides even the 3-game losing streak, right? Once you guys got out of that, you went flying. And so it's good to have the tough conversations now. It's not, you guys aren't in crisis mode where, you sit in the locker room with your chair and you're talking to all individually, like, what are we doing, But it's one of those moments where it's like, hey, let's nip this in the bud now. Let's figure it out so that we're ready to go next game.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's easy looking at the success that we've had over the last month and a half and say, that was just an off day. But when you're focused on your principles and the way that you want to play, and you recognize that we were off, it's important to do it now, because one game can lead to 2, 3, and 4, and you can still sometimes get away with wins in that streak. But
somewhat like Dallas, right? Like kind of the second half of Dallas, it could have been a coin flip. You know?
So then you end up leaving it to chance. And let's say we're 5 games down the road and we're still having the same problems that we did this past weekend. Well, it's tougher to address to the group 5 games down the road when you've got an accumulation of games and it wasn't a big deal now. Why are we making a big deal of it now? So it's really important. Like I said, we want to do something great, and we've done something great. Where we're at right now in the season, I don't think very many people would have thought, outside of the people that are in this room and in this building.
You're right.
But if we want to continue to do so, it's really fixing it now, and then we continue to build and move on.
I think a huge part we've been talking about is the collective. And then also within that is how the team is connected to each other, and more so kind of on getting to know each other on a personal basis. You play a big role in helping to facilitate that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess you call me the team social chair. And Frank and I both have kind of unique roles outside of the technical role. Frank really leads the kind of the mental skills with Koto, and I lead kind of the team bonding, obviously in conjunction with those two. I think it's really important. And coming into this role, obviously it's a role that I haven't really done. And you spend some time reflecting on it and trying to plan into the preseason, you're like, I can see the importance of this because little things can slide. And we all have been in locker rooms where the best teams or the best feeling that you've had as a player, as a team, when you're in the locker room, and it feels like a family. So our goal is to make it feel like a family as much as we can. The reality of this is our jobs. We spend a lot of times away from our family. We are traveling. We're here on the pitch a lot of the time. But if we have a way to create this family, then also connect our families to this family, I think it makes everybody's life that much easier. So my job is to try to take away some of the headaches from the field and just get back to who we are outside of football, and that's human beings and people, and just connecting us together.
Do you have a favorite memory from kind of those bonding sessions that you're able to share, just seeing everybody kind of come together?
There's one that stands out early on. We played a game called Hype Man. It's rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah,
so I'll play you, you play me.
Yeah.
If I beat you, you become my hype man, and then we go around. And I believe, I don't remember.
That was one of the first ones.
That was one of the first ones, yeah. I don't remember who Annabelle was playing against. It may have been Manu. So the contrast of Annabelle, who's a seasoned pro, and Manu, who's in his first year, those two going head to head and competing. And then I think Manu ended up winning and everybody erupting. It's awesome. It's such a cool feeling to see these guys at the end of the day just be kids and compete and have fun. So it's been a lot of fun. We played several games. We've done a trivia. We've done Hype Man. We've done Clap Game. We've done a Flip Cup. A mild Flip Cup. It's been fun. And it's been fun for me to kind of think of different ways to kind of entertain these guys and engage in these guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a huge part too, I think, of like building this like family sense.
Yeah, it's cool. So there's some times we're in a moment right now we don't get to do it as often because we're traveling and the schedule doesn't permit. But they know when team bonding day is, and like, what game you got for us today, Kelvin?
It's fun. Those games are fun, dude. They get more competitive than the soccer field sometimes. So.
Like, where do you come up with these things? Like, you guys got social media. You can find these things anywhere.
Well, that's awesome. I guess we'll shifting gears a little bit to Chicago. What can you tell us about prepping for this matchup this weekend?
Yeah, outside of the travel, you're traveling across country in different time zones. It's always difficult. But Chicago, we know will be very organized. We know they'll be very, very well coached. May not have had the results that they have wanted throughout the season, but it's also a new style and identity for them, and it takes time. But we do know that they will be organized, they will be well coached, and they'll have a clear strategy in which we will need to adapt to, and most importantly, they'll adapt to us. So going into it, it won't be easy. They know there will be ebbs and flows of the game. Their front four are quite electric and dynamic, and I think they're top 4 or 5 in goals scored in the league. So even though the results aren't going their way, they're quite dangerous, and we know we need to prepare for them.
Were you in Columbus when Berhalter was there?
Yeah. Yes.
So has he what from now to then? Style of play wise, is it quite different from when he was there at Columbus?
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of stuff that he was doing in Columbus is probably being taught there in
implemented,
Chicago. Yeah. But obviously he's had a lot of different experience since then. So I would imagine knowing Greg and the time that we had in Columbus, he's evolved for sure. Yeah. But at the heart of it, there's a clear style in which he likes to play. And you can see that in the way that...
Yeah, he's shifting it over there. They had a few rough years, and I think he's starting to kind of break that mold from them. So he's done well. Yeah.
So like I said, we know that they'll be very well coached, and they'll dive into the details. So we have to be on our game for sure. For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kelvin, as always, for your analysis and your insight. We always really appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely.
This has been our match preview presented by Alaska Airlines. We're away this weekend, but then we will return for 2 matches at home next week, Wednesday versus Toronto and Saturday versus Vancouver for our community night. Please, we'd love to see you guys there. And thank you so much for the support. Big news from 18 Threads. New merch is available in store and at 18threads.com. So whether you're heading to Snapdragon Stadium or just repping SDFC around town, 18 Threads has you covered. Stop by Mission Valley or shop online at 18threads.com. Season tickets for the 2026 season will be available later this month. To secure your spot in line and get benefits such as single match ticket discounts for the remainder of this season, a merch discount, and more, place your initial payment today. Visit sandiegofc.com/memberships for more information. All right, we are joined by Head of Human Performance for San Diego FC, Luke Jenkinson. Luke, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
Great to be here.
Happy to have you. Really excited to talk to you today.
Perfect. It's great to speak to you. And I've watched many of these, so it's now cool to join you here at the table. So
awesome.
Appreciate it.
No pressure. I'm making this a good one. All right, Luke. Well, we always love to talk to people about kind of their background and their pathway to San Diego. So just give us the breakdown. How did you end up here?
Yeah, so 2009 is basically when I started my studies. Was working for Sheffield United from 2010. Spent almost 7 years with them in their academy over there, and we had an incredible academy with some incredible people there at a cool time. So there was people like Harry Maguire came through that system, Aaron Ramsdale. I'd studied in Derby, England, and basically was approached by Derby to go and join the team over at Derby County. So 2016, I joined them and spent almost 6 years there overseeing basically academy, first team performance and medical. And then it was at Derby County where I met Mr. Wayne Rooney himself. So I was working with Wayne as a player when he came from DC over to Derby County. He then became head coach, and he asked myself and a gentleman called Pete Shuttleworth, the assistant manager, to come and join him over here in the US, basically the end of 2022, which is what brought me here to the soccer market, shall we say. Spent just over 2 seasons and a bit with DC United. And then made the move to the Best Coast sort of almost a year ago now.
Love that. Love that, shout.
Sal's going to love that.
So, I'm pretty shocked how the East Coast can argue it's better than the West Coast.
It's not even close, right?
It's nowhere near.
I mean, weather-wise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am from the East Coast. I do love the East Coast, but the West Coast has been a great adjustment. No complaints so far.
No, it's been very cool to be here. And full transparency, I didn't know where San Diego was when I started the process, but knew of Right to Dream and knew people that had been associated with the organization. And it was a very easy decision once that opportunity came my way. So grateful to be here.
Awesome, yeah.
Well, you transitioned obviously from England to working in the MLS.
Yep.
Give us a breakdown of what that kind of process was like for you.
Yeah, it was. It's a unique market. I think it's certainly what we've heard Tom Penn say. We're a football club in a soccer market, and it's cool to be here as what we will term a football club, San Diego FC.
Yeah.
I say probably some of the nuances around the league. Of course, we don't operate in a FIFA schedule. So even just some of the simple examples of having FIFA breaks or international breaks and how we would split up some of our loading. Of course, we've got guys here in several competitions, whether that's Nations League, whether that's Gold Cup, whether that's just international duty. Now we've got guys like Paddy McNair traveling 9-10 time zones back to Northern Ireland. Anders going to Denmark, only going to Finland. So there's certainly some logistical challenges that we have here in the US in the MLS market, but it's been fun so far.
What are some of, your positive changes for working in the MLS?
Yeah, I think that we have the opportunity, and again, hopefully we will make postseason, so that off-season won't be long. I think that we have the opportunity to have a real good in-depth off-season that we can bring here into preseason going into 2026. I think that it's unique that we've got players from all over the world, like 14 different nationalities, but many different experiences and leagues that these guys have played in, which it's brought its challenges, but it's also a real cool challenge for us as basically trying to develop those physical parameters that we have here with all of our players.
As the head of performance, can you go into exactly kind of all the different bases that you touch as your job?
So I suppose I spearhead the Department of Human Performance. We have a gentleman called Ryan Morrison, who's our head of medical, and a guy called Yori Pagel, who's our head of physical development. So between the three of us, we basically oversee as those physical, medical, and then we have nutrition and psychology, and then we touch also data insights. So as part of the Right to Dream, that's the 5 departments that we have. In terms of here in San Diego, data insights is just what we have from a sports science perspective. But they're the 5 big cohorts that me and my team are basically responsible for.
Did you have some say in how, when they were building this facility, kind of I want this big, I want all that?
I suppose so. I joined the organization July last year, so I probably came in 80% of the way through. So Casper Thornton, who's the performance director for Right to Dream, him and a gentleman called James Bunce, who is now the performance director at Newcastle, they were basically the two that got it to 80-90% of the way, and then I just came here for the good stuff. So the final fixtures, fittings, the equipment, and so on. But yeah, a very thoughtful process that they went through, and it's very obvious. I spoke to a gentleman today that actually helped fit out our facility, and we are the best soccer specific facility here in the US. It's a cool place to come to work, not just as a building, but then just we look around here and this Saquon reservation land. It's it's a unique spot.
You built this team as well, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what goes into building out a full team from scratch and maybe what you prioritize in that process?
3,000 applicants. So a lot of resumes.
Just a few.
Yeah, exactly. So it was myself and Casper. We hired 10 positions. We're just currently in the process of hiring for the academy as well at the moment. I think the key take home that we were looking for is to get the right people on the bus. One, because if you have the right people on the bus, we can then figure out where those people sit, where our destination is, that is set by San Diego and Right to Dream, but we can figure out the route that we're going to take to get to that destination. And then if you look back to some of the old Silicon Valley boom back in the 90s, there was sort of like three pretty distinct recruitment models. So there was the superstar model, which was basically just take all the big hitters, the ones that would already had high levels of success. There was the professional model, which was basically find a skill set of people with a real narrow focus, maybe to develop a product or an idea. And then there was the commitment model. We went down that commitment model route, should I say. And that's basically around us getting the right people on the bus. So who is intrinsically motivated to be here? Who fits to us as a group of characters? Of course, they had to be a minimum threshold of skill sets, knowledge, time on task, but it was very much we're a people-dominant industry, and we had to make sure that even if you had the best skill sets and the most experience, if you weren't aligned to us and the project, and like motivation was the biggest part. So like two of our athletic trainers, for example, are from San Diego, and it was really cool to bring them back home to their families, and they'd gone off to Austin and Kansas City Current, and it's more than us. Like this place is bigger than any one of us. So it was to build a team that was cohesive, that we were aligned to in terms of our personal and professional goals. So it was, and I believe so far we were pretty successful. So yeah, it's been good.
The team itself is quite large, I think, for MLS standards. Can you give us a breakdown of who you have in which positions?
Yeah, so compared to a lot of MLS clubs, and I think each expansion club is very much pushing those boundaries, the department size is sort of what I'm used to being back home from Europe. I think off the top of my head, it's either 5 or 6, it's 5 mandated positions from a human performance perspective across the MLS, and our team's 11 members of staff. So as I say, we have basically myself, Yuri, head of physical development, Ryan, head of medical, and then within their departments, we have a sports scientist, an S&C coach, a performance coach, then we have full-time nutritionist, full-time psychologist, head of medical, and then full-time PT, and then 2 and a 3rd athletic trainer. So
that's changed so much from when I was
100%.
I mean,
exactly.
Was it like that at DC? When
no, absolutely.
So you kind of changed how it was formatted over there.
There was 5-6 of us over there. So at DC, so much more robust, shall we say here. And I think that the way that I feel that we are here, and I have friends that work in Premier League clubs, and I think it becomes a bit of an inverted view that you can end up having too many staff, that you become really siloed, you become really isolated. It's almost just being like an Amazon conveyor belt, just like you just play such a unique role, and you don't have that intrinsic feeling of basically benefiting the team, having relationships with players. But then, of course, on the flip side of that, if you don't have enough provisions, then you're paddling really hard just to keep the ship afloat, never mind move the ship forward. And I think that we were very fortunate with our backing from the club at San Diego and then Right to Dream, that we're in a good position. And it's nice that we've got a couple more that will be joining us with the academy as well. And we've been able to recruit worldwide to try and find the best people out there that are aligned to us and have those experiences of really being elite in youth athlete development, which has been an interesting journey so far.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you can touch on whatever you can share from your role in building out what the academy looks like here. Obviously, you have a lot of academy experience, but what does that look like in building something from scratch here?
Yeah, I think the really cool part of the project here is that we have guardrails from Right to Dream. So there will be alignment across Ghana, Denmark, Egypt, and then ourselves. But of course, there's cultural differences that we see across all of our organization. So our 18 boys that will be joining us on the 3rd of August, they will have a full-time performance coach that will be with them. And they will basically be the first one that will work with myself to set that long-term athletic development curriculum that the boys will be exposed to here, which will be a very fun, a diverse program. We will treat them as young student athletes, opposed to treating them as mini professional athletes. There'll be multi-sports that will go into their program. We'll be doing some work with a judo coach, just for these guys to learn how to use their body and how to understand where they are in time and space.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It'll be cool. It's
how old are this first group? That's
2012, 2013, 2014. Okay. So under 12s, under 13s.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's been cool. I've been to quite a few of the camps and saw them whittle down. I only saw the last few stages, so maybe from 100 children down to this final 20. And I was here for their what word shall I use? Onboarding when they were walking, and some of the stories that these boys have told. It was cool, and for them to come and live here and be immersed in a full-time football program, into a full-time physical development program, into a curriculum, into an enrichment program.
Yeah.
It's
life changing.
Cool. Absolutely,
like literally changes the course of their life. So it's really cool.
And it's incredible to have been to see that in Ghana and Denmark as well, and then to see some of those graduates like Ema, for example, that we all know and love, and now to see this here. And I often speak to people and I show them all of our sites, and I'm like, it just starts with Tom Vernon 25 years ago in Ghana, and then it's ended up at this. Like it's
crazy.
It's amazing. So yeah.
What kind of challenges you're working with? Kids that are 12 years old and growing their development from such a young age, does that bring versus working with MLS pros? Granted, they can also be in, young stages of their life too.
Like 12-year-olds at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what kind of different approaches do you have from your role?
I typically say if you can coach a 12-year-old, you can coach a pro, but if you can coach a pro, you can't always coach a 12-year-old. I think the biggest challenge that we'll have, and from speaking with John, for example, and Carson and the rest of the footballing staff, is that we're taking a group of young student athletes that are coming from all different walks of life, they're all different backgrounds, and that they're fundamentally coming into a full-time program. So they're leaving some of their informal soccer, living at home, the comforts of being with friends, family, and basically dedicating their life. So the initial challenge for us is onboarding them into a full-time model. There's going to be some tired legs, and we're going to have to be very purposeful and ensure that we have their wellness at basically the forefront of where we're at, and adjust and adapt as we need to be. But again, as the longer that they're in this system, the more that they'll become used to it.
I want to bring it back a little bit to preseason. This probably feels like years ago now at this point.
Yeah.
But take us back to that moment. You're bringing in the team. Everyone's meeting each other for the first time. You're working with guys that have come from very different parts of their different respective seasons to start a new season. Yeah. What is the approach there?
Yeah, so preseason actually started, I think it was the 14th of September. So the day that Mikey Varas was announced. Basically the following day, me and Mikey sat down in the offices downtown, and we're like, right then, where do we philosophically stand, and what's this preseason going to look like? I think the biggest point of reflection that we've had from a lot of the players is that preseason didn't have as much running in it as they expected. Or as maybe just running for the sake of running. I think we were very intentional about when we ran and why we ran. But if we could get some of these physical qualities through football, the biggest thing is we took 25 players from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, and Mikey and the rest of the coaching staff needed to get their philosophical and technical, tactical points into these people. So we had this strange balance of just what can we get from football. And as I say, being very intentional with how we did our small-sided games, how we did our big-sided games when we did use conditioning. But we just wanted to optimize the amount of time that we had on field. Again, being here on the West Coast, and we didn't lose any days from traveling to good weather. We were here for a lot of preseason. We went to Coachella, so we trained in the morning, 2 hours on the bus to Coachella. So it was it was very good from that perspective. I think the one challenge that we've discussed is that I suppose in all the organizations that I've previously worked in, like there's nuances with every player that you work with. You know how certain players report certain things or how they feel or how they respond. We worked very hard to get as much information about a lot of these players before they arrived here, but some of the level of information and knowledge that we had there was high levels of variance. But I think that's been the biggest part, just to understand where they're all at, their journey, what their capacities are, and where we can really push some of those, shall we say.
The players must have loved you if you didn't do too much running at the start. I mean, I always felt like too, like in practice, like you get the running from training, right? I mean, when a coach sets aside a week to just run, it's all mental. Yeah, because it's more just getting through it mentally. All the players hate it. You're gonna get through it, but I just feel like when you start in the soccer, if you have a whole preseason and you just practice every single day playing soccer, you're going to get fit. You're going to get fit enough to play games.
Especially when we can be really intentional how we overload some of those qualities. Like if we just play the game, it only gets us so far. But some of, shall we say, the restrictions that we put on those games, we can get to 110, 120% of match intensity very deliberately. I think that I must admit the opening thing that all the guys did, which has been out on there, they had a maximal 6-minute run, and Paddy literally said to me last week, Paddy was like, I did that run and I was like, what am I in for here? But of course he'd just come from the middle of the championship.
Was that kind of like the like testing to kind of get in a little bit? Okay.
Exactly.
What kind of run was it?
Literally run as far as you can in
for 6 minutes.
We have data, longitudinal data across all of our organizations. So
what was guy was cut like 1.25 miles, some guys? Or?
Yeah, so basically just under, but pushing that sort of distance. Marcus knew exactly. Marcus was basically within the meter of where he was last year when he was with Northland. And of course, we had Yepper's scores and everyone that had been within our system. But Paddy, of course, out on the hot turf in January, not used to this, come from the cold, wet Birmingham of England, are like, what am I in for here? But as I say, we there was times for some running, but the vast majority, we just needed to play football.
So you just wanted to kind of know a baseline a little bit to kind of where to get started.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And we then, all of our subsequent conditioning was then individualized based upon that score. So it enabled us to ensure that if we are going to do something, that the same stimulus that me and you get from it is exactly the same. So if the intensity is too high and I'm not as fit as you, then potentially that's more fatiguing, or the energy substrate that uses is different. So it's just a way.
It's funny because like 30 years ago, it's just everybody does the same thing. And just some guys would just get crushed and some guys were just cruising.
Survival of the fittest, literally. So
Kind of off that, what goes into load management this season? At this point of the season, you've got guys that you've mentioned have traveled far distances for international duty. You've got guys that are going to go play in an all-star game, kind of different variances. What kind of are you able to share that goes into that?
Yeah, I think the bit that I've spoken about, and one of those nuances of the MLS is that we're mandated what day we come back for preseason and what day basically this season we go into regular season. So we only have a 5-week preseason, and then we have the week that led into the Galaxy game. So we had the 8 days going into that Sunday game. That's not a very long time if you've potentially finished the league on the 19th of October, if you were here in the MLS. So that's a long period of time off that you're potentially not doing much. What I personally really enjoy about working here in the MLS is that we get those first 12 weeks in season. So the first 18 weeks are just 1-game weeks. It gives us the opportunity to continue training and pushing some of those physical boundaries. And we, as I've said before, so very much the work that we did on the Matchday -3 on the Wednesdays, myself, Mikey and Yori had a point where we knew that there was going to be rotation, that people will get called upon, whether that's through injury, whether that's through performances. And what I've seen, and we have here in the MLS, is sometimes those guys, especially clubs that don't have a second team, is those guys that are lower down the roster, potentially don't have that match exposure. Sure. They don't have that chronic load.
It's tough to be 90 minutes fit.
100%.
I mean, I would come in from being on the bench and then be like, all right, you're going to start it right back. And I'm like, cramping in like the 75th minute. Exactly. It would take me 2 or 3 weeks to just get through all that, you know? Exactly. So that must be hard to kind of manage, especially when there's a lot of rotations, like, you know, with Gold Cup and in different international tournaments.
We organized a lot of behind closed doors games for those guys. So Sundays, typically, those guys were playing games. And then, as I say, on that Wednesday up until week 16, we basically got to the point where we were doing as much work, give or take, as what a 2-game week would be. So that Wednesday session, the volumes and some of the intensities were that of a 2-game week. So when we went into that, week 17, we had a taper to let them recover. Week 18, we were into that 2-game week. So it wasn't much of a shock to the system. And then when people got called in, whether that was Ale, whether it was Ian and people like that, we weren't as like, we need to make this squad as big as possible for Mikey. And of course, there's always going to be challenges to that. But we just needed to make sure that they were ready to go and do what they're here to do ultimately, which is play football and to show the coaches, the fans and everyone else just why they should be fighting for that spot.
I'm curious, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who is the fittest guy on the team?
That's such a unique question.
Okay, fit in a sense, like if you had to do a, 4-mile run, who's winning that?
Marcus.
Okay.
Marcus and Jeppe. Jeppe would give it a good go.
Okay.
Oni has a big engine.
Okay.
So yeah, those Scandinavian boys.
They're breathing something up there.
Yeah, they can run.
Thin air,
exactly.
crisp air.
But no, it's there's challenges and there's fitness is very unique.
Yeah, it is.
Some people would go, and Jeppe won't mind me saying this because I joke. Jeppe's not the quickest, but the way that Jeppe controls the space, that sort of 3 meters around him, if we say that is sport-specific fitness, both physically and then his reading of the game and his technical abilities is superb, for example. So, but yeah.
Interesting.
You've mentioned it a couple of times, but travel is obviously big in the MLS. This is something that you were studying, correct? Or the specific, result of travel in the MLS and what that effect is. Can you share us a little bit about that?
Did you get into it because you were like, why are these road MLS games so damn hard?
It was sort of that, but it all stemmed, and this was my first ever away game in the MLS. So I traveled from DC to Columbus, and everyone kept telling me how bad this travel was here in the MLS. And I was like, this was a breeze. That same day, Derby County was playing Plymouth away, which is the furthest distance. Derby's central to the country. So similar to DC being central to the East Coast, they never really had anything crazy. But door to door, it wasn't very long for us to get from DC to Columbus. But it would have been significantly longer for the guys going to Plymouth. And I was just like, what are again, sorry to use the word, what are the nuances of this? And like, what are the controllables? Of course, we see even just from simple betting odds, like the away chance of winning in the MLS is so low. There was quite a cool study that was done in the MLB around offsetting basically chances of winning against betting odds. And I wanted to go, what are the things that we can't control, that we know that we can't deal with, but what are the controllables? So some of this around, again, flying schedules and being really intentional. So again, we had the support and backing of the club, but I'll give you the primary example. So we traveled to St. Louis on match day -2, so the Thursday. A lot of the players were like, why the hell are we traveling to St. Louis on a match day -2? We never travel on a -2. And my question to them was, but when we play Chicago, we travel on match day -2. And they were like, yeah, it's in the Eastern Conference. I was like, but actually door to door, St. Louis is only 15 minutes less.
Yeah.
So it's just how we can manage some of these elements around sleep disturbances, some of the gastrointestinal issues that are associated with travel, some of the comfort that we can deal with once we're on the plane and how we eat and hydrate on that plane. And then basically, the European was really frustrated that everyone kept saying RSL was at altitude when it's only 1,200 meters above sea level and the hill behind me is 1,100 meters above sea level. So I just wanted to figure out what are the actual confounding variables and what can we manage. So my first piece of research is just in review for publication. But yeah, we basically have 60 MLS performance and medical practitioners, some of their insights and learnings. And then we've got some more research coming out at the back end of this year.
So much goes into the game that the general fan doesn't realize that is, going into it. Full science research on travel.
So there's no, 6 a.m. flights. Are you guys trying to stay away from that stuff that will disturb their sleep patterns?
So I think some of the benefits that we have locally is that we always make time back, being the furthest west. So locally, we always make time up. So once we land back in market, we're making time up. Of course, we're in the most southerly and west point. So a lot of our games on the west coast are just north-south travel all the way up to Vancouver. We aim for our arrival time to basically be between the hours of 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Just to then stop. So we can basically eat at normal times. So if we then start eating later, we know that there's impact on HRV and sleep quality in that evening. So basically arriving in market and then like say, for example, Vancouver, post-Vancouver, we stayed in market and then flew at a more reasonable time the next day. So then to ensure some of those sleep quality and then just simple logistics, managing those meal timings, what we eat, when we eat, how we sleep, how comfortable we are. And as you say, I think post-COVID, very much in the MLS and the USL and the NWSL are still fighting some of these challenges where they're flying commercial, but we're very fortunate that we can work with our operations team for when those flights happen and what happens once we land in market. So,
it's nice. Yeah.
It is.
Back in the day, you just, flying commercial, you just had to take what you could,
Exactly.
It's different. But
and especially like here in San Diego, if you don't get your flight landed within a certain hour, then we can't be here after 11:30.
Yeah.
You miss that flight and then suddenly it's a one game, but you're away from your friends, your family, like your comfort of your own room for 3-4 days potentially. So we just try and optimize/minimize some of those impacts around travel.
I just got one more for you. What's been your favorite thing about being part of this project?
Well, it's really simple. Just seeing everyone thrive. And I think the one moment that I come back to, we had the point where we lost the 3 games on the row, and coming to work didn't feel any different to when we won 3 on the row. We understand that there's a process and that we're all intrinsically motivated. Of course, there was questions, and we're always trying to figure out what were the variables that could have led to us losing those 3 games. It's very complex systems theory comes into play when we're talking about the outcomes of football games. But I think very much seeing the 10 people that were recruited come here, thrive and be happy, and for us to have an environment where people are really motivated to be here has been the biggest thing. So, pretty simple.
Awesome.
Yeah, amazing. Being in San Diego, I mean, that was kind of when this team kind of first started. I think when you touched on your hiring process of just finding people that want to be a part of the project, I mean, that's the main thing, right? If you're from this city, if you're a soccer guy, like I just, I wanted to be a part of it. And obviously now I'm doing the podcast and it's been a blast. But yeah, I mean, when you find people that are just motivated and want to see, this right to dream and the MLS team and everyone perform at a high rate, then the team's going to succeed. And I think they've done a good job so far finding those people.
It's greater than any one of us.
Yeah.
But when I worked for Sheffield United, we used to say, club's been around for 125 years. Just leave your corner better than you found it, and you just pass the baton on to the next person. And it was pretty unique to no one's been in the corner before us. So it's only going to fall on us if it fails.
Lay the foundation.
Exactly. But hopefully this club will be around for another 125 years, if not longer. And we won't ever be able to take away the emotion that all of us have put into this project. And we will just, as I say, maybe a name on a brick somewhere and part of those foundations. But it's, I just hope that me and the team can leave here one day and just very fondly look at our time at San Diego and what this meant for the community, and seeing Paddy McNair on a bus and a tram in La Mesa, just like, what's this Northern Irish guy doing on there? Or I go to Ange Dry Cleaning and the lady's like, oh, you're English, you'll love soccer, like go to the SDFC games. I'm like, yeah, this sounds really cool. like what it means for the community, and to see soccer here or football here in San Diego is been wild for me as a European in America. Like I've not really felt it or seen it, what it means to the 18 cities here. But it's
Anne's Dry Cleaning is an ice cream place.
A very good
not laundromat. Yeah, exactly. Some good ice cream.
Yeah.
Well, we're grateful that you're here, and we're grateful for the people that you brought into this staff, leaving a mark on this club, and continue to leave a mark with the academy. So exciting stuff to come ahead. So thank you so much.